Hello, everyone, and welcome to Indie Game Arcade, a podcast all about indie games. And this episode, we're talking about our personal favorite indie games of 2024. My name is Chris.
And I'm Joseph.
And happy holidays, everyone. It's Christmas morning, as of when you're hearing this. For us, it's not Christmas morning, because we don't record this the morning of, because that would be insane. Why would we do
That'd be
that?
Crazy.
That's dumb for you even thinking.
So happy holidays, Merry Christmas if you celebrate, all the above.
Also, I just wanted to give a real big shout out quick to, we're recording this a few days after the inaugural Indie Game Awards. It was a lot of fun. I watched it. Thank you everyone that, put it together and was involved. I think it went off extremely well. And congrats to all the games that won awards. They were all very, very well deserved. And also a shout out to those that I was kind of live. I don't even know what to call it. Not tweeting, but reacting on Blue Sky as I was watching it and stuff. So just shout out to everyone that was kind of interacting with me over on the Nerd Sloth account as this was going down. We had some fun and it was nice to know that the couple tributes that they did on there, that I wasn't the only one in tears. So thank you for those others that were letting me know. So I wasn't alone sitting there just staring up at the screen with tears running down my face. And then my wife just looking in occasionally and being like, you're watching an awards show. What is wrong with you? What is happening? So, yeah. So, let's get started here. So what we did, and I want to preface too, this is not us coming and saying these are the greatest games of 2024. These are Joseph and I's favorite games that we played in 2024. So I think what we'll probably do is we both picked 5. And maybe we'll start. Did you rank yours in an order or yours unordered?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, mine are in order from with first being the best, so from 5th to 1st. But it's these are the top 5 games that I've personally played this year. Again, like you said, to preface a little bit, these are our personal picks, so it may not line up with the Indie Game Awards or the Game Awards in general, or even your personal picks. And some of those, because some of those we haven't even played. So these are the ones that we played, that we liked, and that we chose. So just, I think with that out of the way, we can just start however you want. I say we do a back and forth thing.
I think so too. And I think we should, let's start from the bottom too with our, with our 5s. I think you said your 5 was your top though. So now I'm all kinds of confused.
My 5 is on the bottom. My 1 is the top.
5s, numbers scare me, man. I don't know what's going on. First of all, do you have any honorable mentions, though, that didn't make your list?
I do, but I want to say those, we should reserve those for right after 2, before 1. So that way it's a build up to 1. And here's what almost made the list, that kind of thing. Unless you want to do it this way. It doesn't matter.
No, it's fine.
But
we'll do that.
Okay.
I have an inkling that I feel like we're going to mention some of the same ones, but that they probably won't be in the same order. So if we do mention some of the same ones, I'll just edit everything out and you'll never, no, I'm kidding. Because we're not going to talk about everything this game is, unless it's a game that we haven't really covered much of. But I think by this point, most people will know these games. Without further ado, would you like to begin?
I can, sure, yeah. So my number 5 for this year was a game that I've talked about a lot on this show, even since we've been doing it, ever since I played it at least. I mentioned it in almost every single episode up to a certain point, and that is Kill Knight, which was released on October 2nd, 2024. Kill Knight, it pulled me in from the start, obviously, with its intense, fast-paced combat, the kind of thing that I like, where it's a sort of a love letter to classic arcade shooters, but with a brutal kind of roguelike twist to it. And the gameplay loop for me was it was unforgiving, but addictive in a way that was I was doing a little bit better each time, and that personally drives me to keep trying and to keep I know I can make the next rank, or I know I can beat this level, things like that. And for me personally, that game did this for me in spades. There was just a ton of things about this game that I really enjoyed, as simplistic as it is on the surface. And as challenging as it is at the start, like once you get into the flow of it, it is such a good time, and you feel so satisfied when you're able to beat a level on sufferance, which is like the hardest difficulty, or to get a K rank, which is the highest rank in something. Like, it's so satisfying. And even checking as of yesterday, still, only 2.5% of players have actually even beaten the game on any difficulty. That's including the easiest difficulty. So there is a satisfaction to that for me, where it's like, cool, I'm among like the few who have actually persevered through this. Not that anyone can't do it. It's just like, you kind of have to either be really good, or at least be like me and just be kind of a masochist, where I'm going to keep throwing myself at it until I finally get it. And that's what I did. So, but I became so good at it that like I was beating like every level on sufferance difficulty, and it felt really good compared to where it started for me.
So you're a pro gamer at this point, is what you're saying?
I'm not, but I do have the patience to keep trying.
So how much is there left for you to accomplish in that game?
The only thing I still need to do is beat the last level on sufferance, and then try to beat everything on sever mode, which is playing every level mashed together in one without dying.
I would love to see this. So can you record that?
I don't know that I can. Yes, I will record it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can actually do it, but if I ever do, you'll see it.
I would love to see that. That would be crazy. I mean, like, and I think that's one thing that's really cool about that game too. Like, the game wasn't exactly for me because of the difficulty scale of it. Like, I did play it a little bit, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but it wasn't one that I was going to find myself going back to. But one thing I do like about it is kind of that reward that you have personally, being able to kind of see like where you're ranking and how you fit among like all of the other players. And, having that percentage and knowing that you were among this small percentage that's been able to accomplish something within this game that is extremely difficult, like, that's got to feel really good, man. So I think that that's a really, really cool thing for this game to do, and these developers to pull off. So very, very cool.
Yeah, 100%. For anybody who doesn't know, this is a like bullet hell top-down shooter type of roguelike game. If once you see it, you'll kind of know whether it's for you or not. And that's about the most I can say about it. But that's my 5, because it's, even though I loved my experience with it, it still doesn't rank as high as some of these do. So let's go to your 5.
My 5 is Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania. So I know, like, I struggled with this a little bit because it's a DLC.
Sure.
But so at first I did not have this on my list, and I was going to put something else. And then I ended up thinking, like, you know what? I've been spending so much time in this game this year since it came out. Like, if I'm being very honest with myself, the amount of time I'm spending in, I have to put it in. Like, it doesn't make sense for me not to put it. And like, I honestly, in most cases, I probably would shy away from including a DLC when I'm talking about a top 5 or like a year-end list of any kind. I have been having so much fun with this. They added so much stuff, so many more characters to unlock, which at the moment I have unlocked all of them, aside from any potentially hidden ones. So like the when you get the DLC and it's like, here's like, 20 new characters, I got them all. So I've been spending some time in this thing. There's a ton of new weapons, which means like so many more combinations of using these weapons together and seeing what kind of synergizes with each other. All this stuff that you can evolve into even bigger weapons, and most importantly, secrets, which is my favorite thing about this game. This isn't something that I sit down with like, at my desktop or my laptop or something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and now devote 2 hours to playing Vampire Survivors. This is my mobile game. This is where I have got a little bit of time, or I'm on the go somewhere. I know this is going to give me the satisfaction of letting me just plop in, set a goal of attempting to unlock a certain item or a character, and then just pursue that in like a 15 or 30-minute burst. And even with as limited as the actual gameplay is, because if you are unfamiliar, I'm assuming most people know this game by now, but you literally just kind of move your character around the screen and grabbing the different weapons and upgrading them and stuff. Those things just trigger automatically as you're moving your character around. Your only job is to literally not die, which is the survivor's part. There's just so much with how much they've added. There's so much more to consider now as far as what items to use and how you want to go about creating a build. And those builds also do depend on what RNG really grants for you that day or for that run. It's become kind of a comfort game for me. So I know I'll continue playing it into the new year as well. And there's still like more secrets for me to unlock. I think I still have, I want to say 15 more to go. So I've gotten pretty far in it, but there's still more to go. And I still haven't faced down Dracula just yet. You had to unlock a very specific character, Richter, and I just unlocked him like last week, and I haven't gotten to use him yet and go into the throne room to face off against Dracula. So I'm looking forward to doing that and moving forward with this game some more. But yeah, I love the game. I adore it. It, like I said, it's my comfort game. So I had to put it on the list.
Bold choice, because A, it's the DLC, and B, you're talking about the mobile portion of it. So bold choice on both accounts.
But like, it's like, the game functions the exact same way on like Steam Deck, or if you're going to sit down and play it on your PC or something,
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to control, it's not going to control any differently. You would just be using WASD or joystick rather than your thumb. So it's like, the gameplay doesn't change. It has had such an impact on all kinds of other things. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit later in this episode as well. But let's move on to our number 4s. So what is your number 4?
This is where I think we'll have some crossover, because my number 4 is a game that we have played together. And we haven't done a lot of these together. So Dice Folk from February 27, 2024 is my number 4, because I have spent so much time with this game, not because it's just it's not like a repetitive loop in what I'm doing. It's a tactical game where you're getting to make all these different decisions on every single run you're making. The tactical portion of it is rotating. You get your 3 creatures and you're rotating them around each battle and using dice, the faces of whatever dice you're rolling, to determine their actions and the enemy actions. So there's tactics in all of it because you're deciding every step of the way, but it doesn't mean you can like cheat for yourself really, because there are still times where it's like, well, all the enemy has is an attack, so I have to attack and kill myself. Whoops. But there's such a like satisfying loop to this because of how different each run ends up being. How much, just like any good roguelike, how much you lean into any of the new items you might pick up. Or there's RNG to it, of course, but it feels more manageable, especially with the RNG of the dice itself, because you're able to change the faces of the dice. And if you save your credits or whatever the currency in that game is properly, then you'll be able to change the dice appropriately at each junction so that you can start to build it towards the exact kind of dice that you need. Doesn't mean you'll always hit what you need to, but there are times where you'll roll such a good like hand of dice that it can just one-shot like last bosses in that game. And so that's when it's just such a satisfying kind of thing, because it's like, if it were just pure RNG, it's like, okay, I got lucky. But in this case, it's like, no, I built this with intention. And because of what I have like created, this like system I've created with these dice and these creatures together and how they're rotating, I have kind of like, I feel like I've earned this victory. And in that way, it feels like a very satisfying tactical roguelike for me.
It may or may not appear on my list as well. You'll see.
I assumed it might, but we'll see.
It might. It might.
What then is your number 4?
For my number 4, I put UFO 50. This game is a work of art, pure and simple. Even with the games being created to look like older games with that sort of like somewhere between Atari and first generation Nintendo kind of style, still within that, so many of them not only look amazing anyway, but the gameplay is so extremely tight and innovative within the scope of the limits that they set for themselves. There's a ton of games within this package that I absolutely loved. There are some I thought were okay, and there are still several I actively did not like. However, it answers a question for me that I've considered before and didn't know how to answer, and I'm sure it's like a question that like every gamer gets, right? Every gamer thinks about it at some point. Like that question of if you were, stuck on a deserted island with one game, right? One game you could only play. What game would it be? For me, it would be UFO 50 because there's so much to it, so many games, so many achievements, and so many secrets within this one game that I could play it for freaking ever. Even though there are aspects of it that I didn't care for and meaning that there's like, some of the games within this game that I didn't care for. There's a lot more to it that I loved than didn't. And I think it's one of those cases too of even the ones that I didn't love, whether most of the time it was just like a control kind of aspect. And I think if I sat down and spent more time in some of those, I would find something that I like about it. Because you can tell that all of these games were created with a very specific purpose to the gameplay. So I think that because of the variety, because of the creativity, because of the amount that you get in this game package as a single game, essentially, like I could not put this on my list. I think it is an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. Amazing game that may or may not show up on my list as well somewhere.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, how could it not? Really?
How could it not? All right. So then we're going to move on to our number 3s. So what is your number 3?
My number 3 is a game I found a lot of satisfaction in, and one that has a challenge level to it, but I think it's very achievable for even like a gamer, a casual gamer. I'll say that. So Shogun Showdown from September 5th of 2024 surprised me by how perfectly balanced it was with its simplicity, but also its depth. You're going through this turn-based combat system that felt very intuitive, but also revealed a lot of depth throughout because of the options that you had with all the different characters you could choose from, the different abilities they themselves had, all the abilities that the new weapons and attacks you could pick up had. And then it was chaining all that together, making a perfect sort of synergy between the actions that you were taking, knowing what enemies were potentially going to do, being able to dodge that and counter them with something else was just incredibly satisfying for me. And every single decision, because it's turn-based, every single decision in combat carried some kind of weight to it. So there was always a little bit of room for clever tactics or even risky moves, because you're like, okay, if I do this, I'll be safe, but I might set myself up for something worse later, but I think it'll be worth it. And sometimes you have to just take those risks in this game to really make it worth your while, especially if you're trying to go for some of the I guess, tougher achievements of the game, like trying to finish it in a certain amount of time or with only taking a certain amount of hits, things like that. Visually, the game's kind of hand-drawn art style really... It's like a pixelated art style, had a really nice like Japanese setting to it with music that set the tone really well. And you just, there's still so much replayability to it because even though I've beaten it with one of the characters, there's still so many others I could go through it with and unlock new types of, not just skins for them, but like every different kind of like form they have comes with a unique set of skills that attaches to it as well. So that's just more variety. Roguelikes, again, are just something that I love so much. And this was one of my favorites of the year.
I will say real quick that Shogun Showdown is one of my honorable mentions. It didn't make my top 5, but I immensely enjoyed this game. And this was honestly the one that was going to be on my list and ended up getting bumped for Castlevania. Or Ode to Castlevania. So it was so close to being on there. And I can feel your shame, right? I can feel the shame you're directing at me.
I understand, though, because I know you were having a lot of difficulty with that game.
Yeah.
And Castlevania, well, the Vampire Survivors Castlevania is like a comfort game for you. So, of course, that's going to be more meaningful for you than this one.
Yeah, but I really did enjoy my time with it, though. And it's one that because I haven't beaten a run with it yet, like I still want to go back and play more of it. So like, regardless, it's still one that I would probably carry forward and play more of into 2025. So I totally get why it's high on your list. It's a great game. So I would definitely recommend it for anybody, for sure, especially someone that loves roguelikes. Speaking of roguelikes, my number 3, I found out through the Indie Game Awards, we've been pronouncing it wrong, and I think everyone has probably been pronouncing it wrong for a long time. We all thought it was called Balatro. It's Balatro, according to the dev, who said it that way during his acceptance speeches, his 2 acceptance speeches. So Balatro. I need to preface this real quick. When it first came out, like I had seen it on a lot of lists. I had heard other podcasters talking about this game. You were talking about this game to me, and I was like actively kind of avoiding playing it because I'm like, come on, man, like it's a poker game. Like that sucks. I don't like card games in that sense, which is weird because I love roguelike deck builders, but like when it comes to playing cards, like poker, blackjack, things like that, for whatever reason, I've just never found any enjoyment in those types of games. Somehow, because of how this game goes, it made this game not only fun, but addicting to someone who doesn't like poker. That's insane to think about.
Yeah, that's because it's not poker.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
After like the first round, it's not poker anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I struggled with it at first because I wasn't really understanding how to maximize the synergies of everything. So my first several games were like all losses. But then once I finally started kind of like understanding the idea of like the multipliers and how those are going to work with the jokers, and not just trying to be like, this joker will make, all of these cards big, but then kind of seeing like, you know what, if I use this joker, this will multiply everything this other joker's doing. Once that kind of clicked, all of a sudden I want to run. And then I would win another run, maybe a few runs later. And then all of a sudden I found myself winning more often than not. But instead of that getting stale, it just made me want to take more risks, try more challenges, which this game has in spades, no pun intended. Well, maybe a little bit. And just keep going because I was getting so much joy with all the different ways you could earn these big numbers and all of the different things that you could unlock as far as like collecting all the different jokers, completing all of the different challenges and everything. Out of all the games I'm going to talk about today and have talked about so far, this is the only one that cracked my top 5 for playtime in 2024. Like when you do your Steam wrap up thing, this took up, I think it was I can't remember if it was 9 or 12% of my playtime or something. I only stopped because so many other games are coming out, and I was just like, I'm missing a lot of other stuff because I can't stop playing this one. And because of that, I'm a little afraid to go back to it again, even though I really want to, because there's so many other games to play. But this one, this really, I think, changed how I look at certain games. I think it created a little bit more nuance, in my mind, at least, in how I approach certain games. And I think we're going to see that. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but I think we're going to see that in more games going forward. But I do think that the design of this game was extremely innovative in taking something that has come before, like poker, completely reinventing it and even just kind of blowing it up a little bit and turning it into something completely different. But it did it in such a way that I 100% understand why it got Game of the Year in multiple different award shows. It's not my number one, but I understand why it would be for so many other people.
Yeah, this one I did put a lot of time into as well. It's definitely my top 5 of games played this year, according to my year in review. I think it's number 4. And for a little bit of, I guess, achievement talk on that one, at least the last achievement I got with it before I stopped playing it and moved on was high stakes, which is win a run on at least gold stake difficulty. And still only 9.2% of players have even achieved that. And I don't think that I was even that good at that game. I just hit a point where I was like, this is as good as I want to be for right now. I could keep going and keep trying to I don't know, get better, but I got to move on, like you said. So this one is on my honorable mentions, but it did not make my main list because I do think that it's an achievement in gaming for sure. It's just one, and especially for the being made by a solo dev and all of that, like that is so impressive. And congratulations to him for all the, I guess, the attention that he's getting on this and just the praise that's being passed his way. It's well deserved. It's not on my personal top 5 because I had just played so many other games this year that I was like, well, if I'm really honest with myself, if we had a top 10, it would absolutely be in there. But top 5 just had to be reserved for some other things. It was there for a minute, and then I had to push it off for something else. So, Balatro, fantastic game. I completely agree with you. Balatro. Even the music is just such like a simplistic tune that is just on repeat, but it goes in different cadence in different areas. So that's just so interesting to see that you're listening to the same song just at a different pace in different sections. That it makes it, I don't know, like if you haven't played this, try it and you're probably going to fall right into it. And if you have, then you understand what we're talking about already. Yeah,
that music plays in my head all the time. Just like I spend a lot of time probably just sitting on my couch doing like aimless things, but that's the music just playing in my head.
71% of my time spent in Balatro was in April.
Oh, wow.
Was a lot of Balatro.
I wonder if that's that must have been like when it came out. I'm assuming.
I think it came out in March.
Okay.
Maybe towards the end. Sense. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So we're getting close. What is your number 2?
My number 2 you had already spoken about, which is UFO 50 from September 18th of 2024. This I'll some of it's going to be repeating what you said, but others is my personal experience, which is this is just a treasure chest of just nostalgic, creative, and pure like gaming fun. It is when you really scale it out. This game even at max cost is like $25. You're getting 50 games there. It's like 50 cents per game, and some of these games have a right on their own to be sold separately. Like they are so good. Some of them. I think all the games are good in different ways. I just think you'll personally bounce off different ones that other people may be attached to and vice versa. But what I love about that is there's something for everyone here. Any type of gamer you are, you're going to find something to like at least probably 10 plus games to like in this collection. And that is so impressive. I think this is just, it was a group of indie devs coming together and creating this thing just sort of for fun to see what would happen, and creating it as if it were made for like a fake system. And these are lost games that have been found. And that's just having any kind of lore to that. This could have just been like, here's 50 games, you know, whatever. But they dropped it with that lore, with everything else attached to it. That just made it even more appealing that it has that background to it. And it feels very satisfying to even like get the I think it's cherry achievements on there when you're able to like really master one of the individual games, because then you can feel like, okay, I can move on to the next game in UFO 50. And there's still a bunch I want to go back into and try to clear in that way, just to get, I'm not normally like, I need 100% something kind of person. I'm not a completionist in that way, but this game makes me want to keep coming back to it. And I probably will continue coming back to it over the years to slowly chip away at it, because it's something that really invites that. Given its very retro look and feel, it's really going to be a timeless classic, honestly.
I 100% agree with that. I think it's one that I will keep coming back to also, even years later, especially because like there are certain games that I do become a little bit completionist with, and I could see this one eventually becoming that for me, just because you almost have that sort of display available of like seeing all those cartridges. So being able to see like a cherry for each one would be really, really cool. It's very tantalizing to think about achieving that. So, and wanting to see what happens when you pull that off, because
exactly,
I'm sure
like
there's
secrets
something
to it.
Yeah, I've seen in the community that like people are talking about there is a secret or secrets to this game, and I've been like interested. Like part of me really wants to know, but another part of me is just like, don't look, because that needs to be my reward for doing it myself.
Yeah, I could not spoil that for myself, because it needs to be earned, I think, really, because of all the effort that went into like hiding all these things. Even in the first game, what is that first game called? I can't even remember, but the one where you're the little knight in
Baruba?
the cast. Yeah,
Or Baruda.
So Baruda.
One of those.
So difficult. But like I beat that one. I haven't gotten the cherry on it yet, but I beat it, and that just felt like an accomplishment in and of itself because of how unforgiving it is. But even still, I know there's things I have not figured out about that game itself, and how all of these games tie into the little like house that you are building out on that other screen. It's like,
yes,
what are all these other
exactly.
things going to do? What happens when the house is done? There could be additional games in there, things like that. And that is just a tantalizing kind of draw that will absolutely keep me coming back to it.
Absolutely. And I love those kinds of games. It's like where games like, I'll always go back to what I think I would say is my favorite indie game of all time, Inscription. You beat it, and there's so many secrets in that game, and you do it, and you think you found all the secrets, only for like a year or so later to find out there's an even deeper, crazier secret embedded in that game that is so incredibly hard to find, and it takes so much other resources and stuff to uncover what that secret is and what the game really means, what the real story is. It's insane. But like doing that is like the most satisfying thing ever, like just seeing all the bits and pieces and everything. And so like once you get there, it's just like, oh my God, yes. What an accomplishment. What a smart, creative endeavor.
Yes.
My number 2 was Rogue Waters, which might be a little bit of a surprise, but man, I had so much fun with this game. Screw Sea of Thieves. This is my favorite pirate game of all time. They're incredibly different games. They're both just pirate themed. But there's so much going for this game, man. Like you can decide how difficult of a run you want, and the rewards adjust accordingly, which I think is very, very cool. You have so much that you can do to customize your run from the beginning, with selecting your specialty crew members and the buffs that you have and your cannons. using currency that you've earned through the other runs. And then like you set out in this very Slay the Spire kind of setup, selecting your path after each encounter. And then you've got that battle system, which is so cool to me, doing that 3-round ship battle first. I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of this game from a mechanical perspective. Whatever decision that you're making and whatever the capabilities are of the cannons that you chose is going to directly impact what's going to happen on your like actual tactics-based battle on the deck, because it's going to determine how many buffs you have or how many enemies that you're still going to be facing or how many crew you have left or what their health is going to be. And I think that that is incredibly cool because you have to make that decision of the enemy might fire their cannons and target either like my mast, which is providing me a buff, or they're targeting some of my crew. What do I want to do? Do I want to try to take out some of their cannons so that all my stuff is intact? Or do I want to take this opportunity and wipe out some of their buffs, wipe out some of their crew? There's so much thought that goes into just setting up before the battle even happens, like the actual tactical fight. And then you get into the actual deck skirmish where you have even more nuance aside from just like that combat. There's the advantages of positioning, doing extra damage by shoving people into different items or throwing them overboard. The ropes that are positioned randomly around that you can swing across to help you get to those positions. And then you've got also in your back pocket that pact that you've made with the sea monster that can help swing the tide of a battle. It is so much more tactical than most tactics games that I've played. Plus that added pirate theme is just icing on the cake because I love pirates. It's still quite a difficult game, but very rewarding, especially those little cinematics that they throw in there of, you know, shoving someone overboard and they do a cutscene of your character, you know, actually doing that, of like shoving the sword towards them and then they flip over the side of the ship into the water. That's such a cool thing to do. So I absolutely love this game. I don't think it gets talked about nearly enough, and I would love to see more people discuss it and for sure play it.
You know, there's something about this game, as good as it is, and as much as I keep intending to go back and play it, that makes me continue forgetting it. And it might just be that I don't care a lot for like pirate media, but every single time I think about this game, I'll see it in my library and I'll say, oh yeah, I still need to go back and try to like beat this game. And then 5-10 minutes will pass and I'll completely forget it existed. It wasn't until you said it just now that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that game. I forgot I played that game this year. We talked about that game extensively. I enjoyed that game, but there's just something about it just makes it very forgettable for me. And I don't think it's the game's fault. It might just be my, I don't know, just not caring about pirate stuff really. But you being a fan of pirate stuff makes sense why it's more appealing to you.
As far as that goes, like the look of the game, though, like there is nothing wrong with the art or anything as far as that goes. And there's a lot of charm to it as well with like within the characters and everything. However, I would say as far as like character designs and stuff, like it doesn't necessarily stand out from other games of a similar ilk. I think that could have been something that would have pushed this game to possibly number one for me if they had been able to pull something like that off. Something a little bit more stylized or something. But still, for me, it was a fantastic game. I've loved all the time I've spent with it and plan to spend more. Let's get into our honorable mentions before we go to our number ones.
Okay, so for honorable mentions, I just want to say the game, and I'm going to say just like a short thing about it, very short, just to say like what it is essentially. My first one being, like I already said, Balatro, the poker-based roguelike deck builder, and we've spoke extensively about that already, so you know what I'm talking about. I already said why it didn't make my list, but it would have had I had, even if I had a top 6, it might have been up there, but top 5 just couldn't quite cut it for me personally. Another Crab's Treasure, the Hermit Crab Souls-like game. I had so much fun with that. Again, if I had if there was like a 6.5 or a 5.5, like it would be there. But these other games I really cherished my time with. But yeah, I have a full playthrough of that one. Diceomancer. I've spent a ton of time with that one. This is the roguelike deck builder where your dice determine like everything you're doing essentially, or really you can change any number that you see there. So let's say you are doing 5 attacks for 5 damage. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to roll a dice to make that 5 times into like, see what I can get higher, and maybe I can make it a 20 times or something. And so you're essentially adjusting these numbers as you go within a limit, of course, but trying to best utilize your ability to alter the world to play it in your favor. So that one I've had a lot of fun with. I did really play through almost all of that one. I think I haven't like gone through all the challenge modes of it, but I've beaten the core game, and that feels good enough for me for that one. Knock on the Coffin Lid, where you are investigating your own murder, essentially. At least that's the core of it. But it is another like tactical, like roguelike game, and I've spent a lot of time with this one. I plan to spend more with it because there's still more secrets about it that I want to unlock. But that when you're traveling the map and exploring different areas, ton of fun. The last one, this one's going to be probably a lesser known game. Some people might know it. If you do, like, please like shout it out. But Path of Acra, which is a sort of grim dark roguelike in a cursed ancient world where you're customizing your hero to face like a relentless horde of enemies, essentially, but it's kind of a sandbox experience. It is, I don't know, what do you call that? Like, it is almost like down scaled graphics or something, almost like a de-specialized or a demake of graphics. It looks like it's very simplistic, but it has an addictive loop to it because of the way that you have a lot of control over your character and all these different classes you can choose. And then these like gods or something that you are worshiping that give you certain powers. And it's one of those like, not a rhythm turn based, but it's one of those like every step you take, the enemy's able to take one. And so you're working that into your every move you make being effective in some way.
For my honorable mentions, I've already kind of mentioned a little bit of, I mentioned Shogun Showdown. Knock on the Coffin Lid was also another one of mine. I really very much enjoyed that one, and is another one I would like to play some more of as well. I also have The Rise of the Golden Idol as an honorable mention, and it probably would have made my top 5. It's just that I haven't beat it yet, so I'm still playing it. That one having a story to it and not being like a roguelike or something, I want to see that one all the way through before I could be like, yep, this is, better than some of the other ones that I put on here. And the other one I want to mention, I actually just finished this recently, is Me Side. And I was talking about that on a recent episode. It is some of the most fun I've ever had with a horror game. And there's so much other stuff to it that I did not expect whatsoever. There's a ton of little mini games and things in there, even like a little racing game. There's so much more to it. Like when I first did the demo, it was very limited in comparison to what the full game had going for it. So describing it as like a more 3-dimensional kind of Doki Doki sort of thing was not giving it enough credit. It is horrifying in a lot of ways and extremely fun in so many other ways. So I had so much fun with it and would definitely recommend it to anybody. So let's get into our number ones.
My number one, after many hours spent with this game, playing through the entire thing because I just could not pull myself away from the gameplay and or the story, was Nine Souls, from released May 29th, 2024. Yeah. This was hands down my favorite game of the year. Even though I played it so late into the year, it overtook everything else as far as like, this game needs my full attention and I want to give it to it. And it definitely got it. It's got this really unique, like Taoist cyberpunk setting blending Eastern fantasy with cyberpunk elements. And that in and of itself is interesting. But then the story became so engaging, even if there was like a little bit of, I guess, disconnect because I don't understand all of the mythology that it was pushing forward. I was still really into it because I was like, this seems really interesting. It makes me want to know more about the rich lore that was unraveling through all that you were experiencing, because this is a Souls-like / Metroidvania. It's very light in the Metroidvania aspect, but it's still Metroidvania in the sense that you are cut off from certain areas until you do a certain thing or get a certain item or move that allows you to search those areas that you weren't able to before. So the exploration, I think I 100%ed this game, honestly. If not, then I've 99%ed it, because all of those areas made me want to keep going back to them to find things that I might have missed before, because even if they weren't giving me anything like a new weapon or move or anything, they were giving me parts of the story that I was disconnected from that I wanted to know more about. So if that doesn't tell you enough, and I'm not even like a story guy, so that it means that this was really engaging for me personally. And I think it's because it really blended well with what I was actually doing on the screen. All the pure kind of combat that was going on, it made me feel like it had purpose to it that I don't feel in a lot of games, which is why I disconnect the story from gameplay the majority of the time. But this one felt really fluid, really rewarding. Every boss fight was pushing me to my limits, and it demands, with the parry system that it has, a very precise timing. Even though it's a more forgiving parry than some games, it's still challenging enough to where you're like, okay, there's a rhythm to it that you have to find. And that rhythm can change quickly because the boss isn't going to do the same moves over and over again. So you have to adapt to that rhythm. And it made beating these bosses very satisfying, especially if I was able to do it with like taking very few hits or like countering things perfectly. That's just like a really kind of rewarding sort of end to a challenging fight of bosses with multiple phases or something like that. So beating this game felt like a personal achievement for the year, even after finishing it. And I still feel compelled to dive back in for the true ending, which fortunately I can pick up from a save that like just before the actual end, because I had done the majority of what I needed to do that. I just had to do like one or two more things. Then I can go see what the true ending is. And that will help me kind of like completely wrap up this game. And not to say I won't go back to it in a couple of years just to like relive that experience. But for the time being, I will be completely done with it and I'll feel very satisfied. And that'll put like the bow on that gift that it gave to me. So yes, best gaming experience I've had in a while.
And then you can upload them all so I can watch it, because
I do have it all recorded. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be too hard for me because I suck at these games. This is why I stick to the casual ones for the most part, you know?
Yeah,
but
this is why Vampire Survivors made your top 5.
Yeah, this is that's exactly why. My number one is a game that you already mentioned on your list. And my number one was Dice Folk. This is one of my favorite systems I've ever encountered in a roguelike as far as the gameplay. And a big part of that too is because it satisfies an itch of two things, of being somewhat of a tactics game while also being somewhat of a monster catcher game, while being different than both of those genres usually are. Like, it takes out the tediousness of what most monster catchers end up being. So, like, in comparison, when we talk about something like Pokemon or Monster Crown or Cassette Beasts or something like that, you don't have the having to wander to, get your monsters and stuff like that. Like, there are set points on this little grid map that's where you go, and you are going to get your Chimera, and it's like an RNG thing. And you have to even be tactical about, do you pick this one up, this first one that you got? Because if you take that one right now, you don't get to see what the other two options might be. So then if you like go off without it though, then you're stuck with like the 3 default things that you had, which are not going to be as powerful, but you can try to hit up those other points and then see what other options you might get. So there's so much thinking and tactics involved in every single step of this game, choosing your chimeras, choosing how to upgrade your die, which also involve RNG, choosing what to do when you're in battle, because like even like rotating some of your characters around, and that is such an amazing system too, of having those 3 that you can rotate around depending on how you roll those die. But like the opponents might have specific reactions to those, but then you could also have trinkets that are equipped to your different chimeras that might react to the opponents. There is so many things that can happen. This is one of the craziest games I've ever seen for having different like synergies between everything. And I think that when I talk about games like Balatro having like a lot of synergies and stuff too, those synergies are still like limited to one thing. Like those synergies are between the jokers and your cards. Synergy in this game is between everything. And it just really it got my creative juices flowing in my head like no other game had for a very, very long time. So this kept my attention for a very long time. I had so much fun with it. I did not want to put it down, as you know, because you and I played this like crazy when you were visiting, and I kept playing it long after you had left. It is one of my favorite games to keep playing on Steam Deck, and I know that I'm going to keep playing it into the future. It is has so much replayability too, with all those extra challenges. They keep creating DLCs as well, with more chimeras and more modes, and there's just so much to do with it. So 100%, this is my favorite game of the year.
What I really appreciate about that one, about Dice Folk in general, is that for us both, it was a random pick. It was a game that I had picked up for the purpose of like, this is something we might have fun playing together for a little bit while I'm visiting. And I did not think that it would overtake most of my visit while we were there. But it truly did in the best way possible, because even though it's not multiplayer, it was just as engaging being on the other side watching, like you play around or something, or then I'll go play around, whatever. But that back and forth of just watching us make those decisions or getting those opportunities made it a very exciting thing to not only play, but just to watch being played. And I think a part of the reason why this is so high on your list is probably because like you were very good at it from the start. I don't think in the time that we played together, you lost a single match. And that was just very interesting that you, I guess, grew or attached to it right away. And that system became second nature to you so quickly.
And that didn't make it like boring or stale or anything, because they were all very difficult. Like a lot of times it felt like I barely won. Like I felt like I was scraping by at the very end more often than not, but it made it so satisfying.
I remember one of your runs, like it was one of your starting goblins or whatever that was like the hero of your in crew. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. And that was part of the magic of that game, is like I made that viable through all of the different things around him, like the other two chimera I picked, with the this synergy of the items that I picked and put on them, like in their pockets, and the die rolls, like, or the die faces that I had attached to the die. It's like everything worked out perfectly so that this little starter guy that, I mean, you're really kind of encouraged not to keep in your run, became like the most powerful thing in that entire run. So yeah, it worked out great.
Yeah. So it's interesting diversity of runs like that really add a lot of charm to this game.
Absolutely. there are probably some folks listening that are like, oh, why isn't this game in your list? Why isn't this game in your list? This was such a great game. It's because we didn't get to every single game. Like, man, we work full-time jobs. I've got a kid to take care of. There's a lot going on. We do this podcast, among many other things. Our time is very taken up. However, we probably will be playing a lot more games this next year because, we started this podcast really, really late in 2024. But with that said, I wanted to talk about really quick what games are in our 2024 backlog that may have impacted our list if we had actually gotten around to playing them.
I have 9 games, and I'll say them very fast, but I have 9 games that I could think of that I wish I had played this year. Mullet Mad Jack being the first one, which is a high-octane shooter, inspired by classic anime where speed, destruction, and style are all that matter. It just looks very, very intense to me in a fun way. Peglin is another one. This is a pachinko-inspired roguelike. Yeah. Where you're just literally playing a pachinko-like game, but every hit of these pegs translates into either damage or loot or different types of things. You set up your board to have that kind of randomness to it, but a calculated randomness that I really love about these games. Thank Goodness You're Here is another one. That's an absurd comedy platformer set in a weird Northern English town. The style visually was reminding me of Close Enough. I know not 1-to-1, but I think the crude humor attached to that style of comedy seems right up my alley. One I want to try out. Secrets of Grindia. That one is a co-op action RPG that has really an old kind of pixel art styling to it of older RPGs. Looks interesting, kind of like Secret of Mana or Chrono Trigger even. Drova, Forsaken Kin, an action RPG that blends dark fantasy with Celtic mythology. And there's divided factions, restless spirits, and you're kind of just battling for dominance in this broken world. And that looks really challenging in a fun way. Mini shoot adventure. That's a bullet hell Metroidvania inspired by Zelda, essentially, that features you, instead of being like Link, a guy just walking around, you are an actual little ship walking around and fighting other ships, but in the same kind of style of with an overhead map, but it's also a bullet hell. So all those things tied together sound really interesting to me. Tactical Breach Wizards, where you lead a team of battle-hardened magical law enforcers through tactical turn-based combat filled with spell slinging and absurd environmental takedowns, for the most part, kicking people out of windows. Sounds really fun. It's kind of like XCOM, but with comedy. Core Keeper, a sandbox adventure for up to 8 players where mining, crafting, and farming combine into an expansive cooperative underground journey. That one's one I want to play with some friends. So that one I'm waiting on until I get a group of people who want to actually play Core Keeper together. I think that'd be a really fun experience. And lastly, Animal Well, which is, everyone knows what Animal Well is at this point, I'm sure, if you're listening to an indie game podcast, but it is that one where there's so much mystery to it. And even though there's no combat, it is all about exploration and experimentation with your environment to see what happens, see how you can get from, figure out the secrets to this strange world. Yeah,
that was my number one also of ones that I wish I had gotten to this year. So it's definitely one that I'll play eventually and get to. And one thing too is the animation and the physics in that game are crazy good. And also it's the smallest, it is such a small file size, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I think it was 36 megabytes or something.
Yeah, it's in the 30s for sure. I don't know how they did that. I've zero idea how, I think it's Billy Basso is the dev. No idea how he pulled that off.
Yeah, just a way smarter person than I am.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the other ones I did not write any of the the descriptions down. So some of them maybe I can give off the top of my head. But I had a couple sort of very interactive fiction kind of games like Extra Coin and Until Then. So those were two that are like a lot more chill kind of ones that I really want to get to. Mika and the Witch's Mountain, which is sort of like a very inspired by Studio Ghibli's sort of game where you play a witch, sewing around on a broomstick in a real pretty place. Europa, which is also a little bit of Studio Ghibli themed, and it's kind of a shorter game. So I think a lot of these are, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe that's my thing, is short, like, interactive fiction games. Maybe that should be my new YouTube channel, short interactive fiction games. Anyway, Neva or Neva, however you say it, that is absolutely one that I want to play. Gris is one of my favorite games of all time. Gory, Cuddly Carnage is one that I would love to play. That's where you're like the cat dude on the like the skateboard, like hoverboard kind of thing, and you're having to kill everything. That looks great. Is This Game Trying to Kill Me, which is the very Inscription, like sort of you're in the cabin with all the weird stuff. Like it's almost like an escape room, but then you've got the computer in the middle with the computer game on it, and stuff that you do in that game affects stuff in the cabin around you. Pacific Drive, which is kind of a survival, maybe psychological horror game in a way, maybe a little bit of just regular horror to it, but you're in a car driving through like woods and stuff and nothing makes any sense and you gotta survive and keep your car going. That's a terrible description of it, but look up the trailer. It's very, very good. And then I think the last one I have on here is Cobalt Core, which I think that you played.
I have played. I really enjoy that game.
Yeah, roguelike deck builder, but kind of like Star Fox-ish sort of inspired, it looks like, but as a roguelike deck builder. So that is something I really would like to play too. So obviously there's a lot of great games that came out in 2024 and that we did not get to. You know, as much as you and I do overlap at times and we talk about a lot of the same games each week, we tend to steer towards very, very different types of games. It is interesting that we are able to get like a real big spread on the types of games that we cover because of that. And with that said, what games are you most anticipating in 2025?
I did condense it down to just 5 games for this one, even though there are probably going to be many more that I'm looking forward to. But
good job.
One of them, Date Everything. I talked about that because I thought it was coming out 2024. I talked about it earlier in the year,
supposed to.
Or an earlier episode. Yeah, but it got pushed back. So that's one where it's a sandbox dating sim where you're literally dating everything in your home, from like your refrigerator to your smoke alarm. So just like, I don't even need to say anything else. Like, this just sounds really interesting. So I want to try that one. Hyperlight Breaker. It is the continuation of Hyperlight Drifter, but obviously a very different game. That one, Hyperlight Drifter, is the one that is the like 3/4 view pixelated action game. This other one is more akin to, it's a fully 3D sort of like zoomed out type game where, God, there's this other game I'm trying to think of. I wish I could pull these games quicker out of my head. That is, so whatever. Hyperlight Breaker, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. Tenjutsu, a fast and fluid roguelike jutsu game. It's by the designer of Dead Cells, and I love that game so much. So Tenjutsu looks cool and probably will be amazing. Morsels, which is a fast-paced creature collecting roguelite with a rotating roster of characters you switch between. So that one just sounds really fun. Slay the Spire 2 is my number one game that I'm looking forward to in 2025, because it is the return of that beloved deck builder with new heroes, expanded relics, and more. And that's all I need to know.
And there's where we overlap, because that is also on my top 5 anticipated games for 2025. Slay the Spire 2 is also on my list. I'm very, very excited for that game. So my other ones, here's one that you'll be familiar with because we talked about it not that long ago, which is Rue Valley, because we covered it on an episode when we were sent the demo to try out. And that is a game that is really up my alley. I talked a lot about how I love that personality system and how much that affects the actual choices that you can make in the gameplay itself. I really, really want to see this thing in its full form and just how deep everything goes. I'm very, very excited for that. By Sweet Carol is another one that I'm really excited for. This is the game that, like, it looks like a Disney animated film from, like, kind of the era of, like, almost like Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. It's supposed to be sort of a dark, somewhat like interactive fiction / platformer. It looks absolutely gorgeous. So if you haven't seen it before, check out the trailer for By Sweet Carol, and you're going to understand exactly why this game is on my most anticipated games list. Citizen Sleeper 2 is another one that I'm very, very much excited for. I love the first Citizen Sleeper. I spent a lot of time in that game. The original was very much a like solo TTRPG sort of feel, where you're taking on the role of a sleeper, this kind of like robot character that awakens on the space station. And it's very much you managing some resources, but interacting a lot with other characters and really kind of developing a story and developing all these relationships in the time that you're there. And it really does feel like you are playing some sort of TTRPG, just solo, yourself, with the game itself being the GM, with lots of die rolls, and they do some very creative things within that as well. So I love that first one. The second one, everything I've seen about it so far looks like they're building on the foundations of what they did before. So that sounds great to me. The last one I have is Threads of Time. This is a JRPG, which looks amazing. I really enjoyed Sea of Stars and thought, Sea of Stars was like the closest thing I felt we ever got to a real spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger. Threads of Time might change my mind on that. This looks even closer to what I loved about Chrono Trigger. It even takes like plot elements in a way, like you are literally going through time in this one. So it looks gorgeous. The gameplay mechanics look fantastic, and the story itself sounds great. And as long as they have a lot of heart in the writing and everything, just like Chrono Trigger, like Sea of Stars, it's probably going to be one of my favorites. So I'm very excited for that one as well.
Very nice. Definitely a different list of games, but all sound really good.
Yeah, so there we are. One question I wanted to ask you, especially because I had been thinking about it, and you and I, like, as we were talking about in our list, definitely reflect, we have our pulse on very different types of games within the indie genre. So one thing I want to ask you is, are there any like trends that you are kind of anticipating, like any types of games that we're going to see more of in 2025?
I feel like we're going to start leaning back into an action RPG direction. I'm hoping that we're going to step away from the Survivor bullet heaven thing, because that was kind of this year's obsession. Or the last couple of years, I guess. So I hope we start to lean away from that, not because they're not good in their own right, but like make room for some other stuff. So I just think we've had a ton. Deck building / roguelikes have been going on for a long time. So that's not outplayed, but I don't think it'll be as big this year. But I think more like action oriented games are things that have been kind of underdeveloped as far as the indie scene goes, at least in mass. And maybe it's because they are more challenging to make than a turn-based thing would be. I get that. Maybe that's just like a hope, is that we start to lean more towards action RPGs.
One thing that you sort of noticed as you were talking about like the trend and like the bullet heaven kind of games, because of games like Vampire Survivors. And like we got a ton of those this year. And I think it's just sort of like when like certain games will come along and it creates like this wave of others that almost like defines almost like a new subgenre. And like that will usually last a couple years, like 1 to 2 years, to really create that sort of subgenre, and that'll start kind of fleshing out. When Slay the Spire came along, that really fleshed out the roguelike deck builder. We're still seeing that. And Slay the Spire's been out like how long now? I'm wondering with a new one coming out, if then we'll see like another big boom in that years from now.
Maybe a wave, yeah.
My guess, though, is that with Balatro, we're going to see a wave of very similar games. I think we've honestly already seen a little bit of that, because there are some similar games, like we've got Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers, which came out. We just got Billionaire and Peglin, which have kind of taken existing classic style games, like tactile games, much like Balatro did, and added in new gameplay mechanics to drastically alter like how that game is played. My guess is we're going to see some more similar things like that using other styles of games. Because I'm thinking, like, what if we see stuff like that based on things like Yahtzee or dominoes? We've definitely seen it with chess. We'll probably be covering one of those in early January. Maybe even alternative takes on like board game mechanics like Battleship, Sorry, things like that. But I do think that's something we'll see more of.
Potentially, yeah. Did you mention Dungeons and Deck Builders? Because that is a blackjack alternative game.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that recently.
Yeah, I think it came out maybe even prior to Balatro, but these games have existed in some way. Balatro just really kind of popularized it or made it like huge. So maybe other people will start branching off of this, sure, TBD. But seeing as like it was voted for so many awards this year, that is probably going to be encouraging towards the future of games for the next year or two at least.
I also think that Crow Country will have inspired almost like a want for more games to create that sort of nostalgic look for those game systems that had already moved past pixel art.
Yeah, we might start stepping away from pixel art and moving more towards the PS1 era of graphics. Not to say that pixel art will not be stepped back into or still be going on, but I think people are maybe going to start expanding to that, and maybe even like the N64 era with some games. I think like it's time to bring those back for a little while, and then again go back to pixel, because it's never like that's never out of style.
Yeah, pixel art will always look good. Games like Crow Country and Mouthwashing both having had like some success and stuff this year. I'm sure we're going to start seeing some devs kind of lean into that sort of style. My hope is that AI won't become a major force. I know there are folks pushing for that very, very hard. A certain someone wanting an entire studio that's just AI making games, and I think that would suck. There's a huge difference for sure of like a developer, like a solo dev, like asking or an AI for help writing a code or something, and then asking a AI to write all of their code, or developing a concept or writing the dialogue. Like, that's not going to replace true creativity, especially considering all the games we've talked about in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference between AI assistance versus AI replacement. And that will be very noticeable. People are going to see it, especially the art. Like, don't do that to artists.
Don't use AI art, please. We don't want to see that. Something we would like to see, though, is if you have enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, share it with someone who loves indie games. We're going to take a break for the holidays, which sounds weird because you're listening to this on Christmas, if you're listening to it the day it came out. But we were recording this before Christmas, so to us, we're taking a break. But you can still catch tons of Let's Play content over at our YouTube channel at youtube.com/nerdsloth, and catch hundreds of hours of bonus content for just $1 a month by subscribing to the Nerdsloth Treehouse over at patreon.com/nerdsloth. We also have an exclusive podcast there for those at the $5 tier as well, along with a few other exclusives only available to those members. We just did, in our last one, we did a little TTRPG, like I did a little solo thing for Joseph, which if you're hearing this, it comes out this coming Friday. And that's going to be in that podcast at that $5 tier level, the Nerdsloth podcast. And it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with it. It was ridiculous.
It'll be very seasonally topical.
Yes, extremely appropriate. At nerdsloth.com, you can find a link to our Discord server. I would encourage you to join us there. You can also join our subreddit for Indie Game Arcade and help us post more reviews of indie games so more folks can find games that suit their play style.
Game over!
And that's game over for us. My name's Chris.
I'm Joseph.
And we'll continue next year.
Continue.
Indie Game Arcade is recorded and produced by Sloth Creative. If you're looking for more gaming content, head over to youtube.com/nerdsloth. For additional podcasts, go to nerdsloth.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are multiple tiers available at patreon.com/nerdsloth, with hundreds of hours of bonus content from everything we do at Sloth Creative, including bonus gameplay videos of the games we talk about on the show. The theme music for the show is Retro Game Tapes by Audio Lime. If you'd like to get in touch with us, or if you're an indie game developer and would like us to consider reviewing your game, send us an email to podcasts@nerdsloth.com with the subject line Indie Game Arcade.